The Ambitious Radio Network. Conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Are you an entrepreneur, startup junkie, or just someone interested in improving their leadership skills? If you're looking to be motivated, inspired, and uncover what it takes to get to the next level, listening to Ambitious Radio will be well worth the investment of your time. We have weekly engaging conversations with today's most influential thought leaders and entrepreneurs as they discuss their successes, failures, tipping points, and other priceless information that you can apply immediately after listening. Now, here's your host, Doug Parker. And welcome to Texas Money and Business here on KEXB, Experts in Business, right here on 620 AM. I'm Ron Taylor. It's good to have you here. We have our good friend Doug Parker with Ambitious Radio Network, certainly an expert in business, and another expert in business we'll introduce in a moment. But Doug, goodness, it's going to be a great day. Welcome along.
Well, thanks so much, Ron, and thanks for all you do. As always, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah, today we've got a great guest, and we'll jump right into that. But all this is made possible by our sponsors, so we want to thank those guys. Real quick, Grasshopper.com, the entrepreneur's phone system. And most of the time, small business owners need to personally guarantee any loans they take out for their companies, but that can be tough to do if they've got any credit issues. So go to repairmycreditnow.com for their free credit report evaluation. That's repairmycreditnow.com. So getting to know the ambitious leader. Today, we're going to be talking to Kelly Shackelford. He's the president and CEO of First Liberty Institute. He's a constitutional scholar. He's argued before the United States Supreme Court, testified before the U.S. House and Senate on constitutional issues, and won multiple landmark First Amendment and religious liberty cases in the past few years. He was recently named one of the 25 greatest Texas lawyers of the past quarter century by Texas Lawyer, and is a recipient of the prestigious William Bentley Bell Award for Life and Religious Freedom Defense for his leadership and pioneering work protecting religious freedom. So welcome to the show, Kelly.
Oh, it's good to be on.
My goodness, you've accomplished so much. That's a fantastic story as I've kind of gotten to know you a little bit in research. Tell us a little bit kind of about First Liberty. I think you guys have recently changed the name. A lot of people may know it as Liberty Institute.
That's right.
Tell us.
You're on the cutting edge. We're literally just in February adjusting our name from Liberty Institute to First Liberty Institute, and really probably go by First Liberty because that's what we focus on: the First Liberty, religious freedom, the First Amendment.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense. I was been aware of the organization for a while, and I got an email the other day, and one of your guys, Steve Purdom, that works with you, we go to church together, and so I wanted to make sure and address you properly there. So tell us just a little bit for those that don't know what you guys do. Tell us a little bit about what you're all about.
Well, First Liberty is the largest legal organization in the country that all we do is religious freedom. I mean, that's our sole focus, and we do that free of charge. So, I could give you a lot of examples, but let's say you took the 9-year-old boy we represented who they told all the kids, you can bring whatever book you want to read during free reading time, but that changed when he brought his Bible, and he was told he couldn't bring his Bible, he couldn't read his Bible. And, this is a poor family outside of Miami-Dade. They certainly didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to go out and hire a legal team. And so we provide that, and the best lawyers in the country literally donate their time, and we put that team together. And then when we win that case, like that case, the Giovanni Rubio case, we don't just win for Giovanni and his family, but that precedent protects, us. It protects our children and our grandchildren. So it's something that everybody wants to be a part of because we all have a vested interest in the freedoms that we have to share our faith and to speak publicly.
Sure. Yeah, I remember hearing about that, and I think there was another case that maybe you guys had gotten involved in that had to do with like a valedictorian speech or something. He was told they were going to cut the mic and do something crazy if he said anything about God or Jesus in there.
Yeah, we actually we've had a number of those. The one here locally we had was really disgraceful. They not only turned off his mic, but then they threatened to call the Naval Academy and to have his offer revoked because he mentioned God in the Constitution in his valedictory address. By the time we were done, they were making a public apology and all that was turned around. But unfortunately, that's the kind of stuff that goes on in our country right now. We're having to represent, I think most people have heard about the coach, Coach Kennedy, who has been actually, fired because he went to a knee after the game to thank God for the privilege of coaching the young men, and he did this all by himself. So the kind of hostility that's out there against the most basic rights of the free exercise of religion and religious freedom, we just can't take those things for granted now. I mean, I think back to 26, 27 years ago when I started doing this. You couldn't have convinced me that I was going to be representing churches, that churches would need defense in the United States of America. But now we probably have another two churches a week on average that we have to represent. They just want to be a church. They just want to do what churches do. And all of a sudden, the city wants to bulldoze their land and take their church down because they think it'll make better taxpayer property, or they're telling them that they have to have at least 2 acres of land for parking because the city doesn't want them to be there because they're not going to pay taxes because they're a nonprofit, or just story after story after story where churches are all of a sudden no longer seen as the great benefit that they really are to the community. But you've got cities and counties all across the country that are a really hostile place, even for the church.
Well, you mentioned you've been doing this for 26, 27 years. So tell us a little bit about kind of your story of how you decided to get into this field and work and help people out.
Well, really, for me, it goes back to when I was in high school. Sort of by then, I kind of felt like the Lord had shown me what my skills were, and my gifts were in analytical thinking and speaking. And I thought, I either need to be a pastor or a lawyer. And people were, kind of like, that's kind of a God or Satan choice, isn't it? A pastor or a lawyer. Very different. But, and I talked to my youth pastor, and he was great. He said, if you're called to be a minister, that's a wonderful calling. He said, but I will say this. I know a lot of Christian pastors, and boy, we sure could use some more Christian lawyers. And as I really analyzed my DNA, I realized I probably was really more called to law than I thought I would make a better lawyer than a better, pastor and counselor and all the other things that pastors do. And went to law school at Baylor, and intelligence and grades wise, undergrad. I mean, I should, good grades and all that, but I should have been an average law student. But my heart was really for ministry. So I donated a lot of time at my church. I led the discipleship ministry for the college students. And that's really a bad plan when you think about it. Be average intelligence, and then while everybody else is studying 24/7, you're spending time volunteering and doing other things. But when the grades came back, I was making all the high grades. And I just felt like it was the Lord showing me, I want you to use your legal skills, but I want you to keep your heart for ministry. And so I got out. I clerked for a federal judge. You do that for 1 year after law school. If you can get one of those jobs, they're pretty tough to get because it's such a unique experience. You get to see what it's like to be on the other side of the bench. So you learn what's persuasive and what's not, and what's over the top and what's not. You can imagine lawyers can easily go over the top and lose their credibility if they get too energetic about something. And so you learn sort of because you get to see it from a different perspective. And after that year, all the law firms want you to come work for them because, that's a unique perspective that you've gotten. And so you get a lot of nice offers from all of them. And I just sat in my office and I thought, I felt like I'd suffocate if I went and did the regular law thing. I just don't feel like that's what God was calling me to do. And I remember thinking to myself, well, what do you want to do? And I thought, well, I'd like to use my legal skills, but I want to help pastors and churches and religious freedoms and our founding principles. And I'd even like to go to seminary part-time if I could. And I laughed because there was no job like that. And about 2 weeks later, two guys called me. I never met these guys. They were partners in major law firms. And they said, we started donating our time for religious freedom, and we're not getting so many calls. It's hurting our ability to make a living. So we were wondering, would you be willing to come on, do cases, help pastors, churches, religious freedoms, and our founding principles? And you can even go to seminary part-time if you want to. And, basically they created the job that I thought, boy, that's what I would love to do. And God just laid it in my lap. And their only question was how much you need to live on. And I was making 28,000 as a clerk for a federal court. So they started pitching in each month out of their pocket to cover this new ministry that was starting. And that was, almost 27 years ago that I started doing this. And now the Liberty Institute's the largest legal organization in the country that focuses, exclusively on religious liberty in the United States. So it's one of those sort of American stories, but really it's one of those God stories. God knew there was going to be a need for this, and it was going to grow greater and greater, and so He created, people that had a heart, a passion, and a calling. There's people all around me here, lots of people, all top of their class from law schools that could be out making a lot of money, but God, this is where God sent them, and they know this is where they're supposed to be. And boy, I think a lot of people do right now with all the things going on around the country.
There's no question about that. It really is, and that's really just a great story of how, you put something out there, you pray about it, and then you look up, and somehow or another, you couldn't have planned it better if you'd have went out and written the job description for yourself. It sounds like. So one quick thing we always like to get from folks is different books they like, different quotes they like, those types of things. And I see here that one of your favorite quotes was, "I'm immortal until God's work for me is done." And that is really powerful. That reminds me of a deal with Zig Ziglar. At one point, right after 9/11, someone had asked him something to the effect of, you're going to get on a plane, you're doing a lot of traveling, and he's like, "Absolutely, I'm going to get on a plane. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go. But I'm not going to let no terrorist, scare me or take me off. When God's ready for me to be gone, that's what'll happen." So,
yes, well, that's the great
really
thing about that verse is sort of the twofold part of it. One part is that God has some things for us to do. I mean, we're not just here to kind of sit on our rump, I mean, we're made in His image, and we each are made very uniquely with gifts. I mean, people always wonder, what's God's will? Well, the most specific, particularized will you'll ever see is how uniquely you're created. And so there is something awesome about, that Ephesians 2:10, that we're God's workmanship, created to do things that He's laid out in front of us to do. I mean, He's got things for us to do, and so that's the first good part. But the other good part is, until you've done whatever He has for you to do, nobody can touch you. I mean, He's in control. So you just need to be obedient, and when it's time, it'll be time. But nobody else is going to interrupt His schedule. And so that's the great thing, that you can rest in Him and not have to be fearful or worry or think that somebody is going to do something to change things, because it's His will that matters, and He has control over that.
Well, that is great stuff for our listeners. And guys, if you missed anything, you can go back and check out the show notes on ambitiousradio.com. Any content that we discuss will be marked there on the guests show page. So you can just click on Kelly Shackelford and it'll be there. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. Tune in after a brief word from our sponsors when we'll be talking more to Kelly Shackelford about his career pursuits, his experience of being an ambitious leader, and protecting individuals' religious liberties.
You get the most for your lease with an Autoflex lease, yeah.
When you start shopping for a car, you go in thinking that this time you're really going to get a great deal. Then the haggling starts. You have to fence with the salesman over the price, then verbally joust with the finance manager over the interest rate and all the extras they want to sell you. By the time you get out of there, you're glad to have escaped with your watch and rings. Stop the insanity. There's a better way, and that's to lease your next car from Autoflex Leasing. Call the leasing specialist at Autoflex, and you'll find that getting your next car can be fast, easy, and fun. Your Autoflex specialist leases all makes and models, both new and used. They'll also pick up your trade-in for an appraisal and deliver your new car to your home or office. Imagine leasing your next car and never having to go to a dealer. Happens every day at Autoflex Leasing. To see for yourself, call Autoflex today at 817 or 972-234-1234 or reach them at Autoflex.com. Autoflex Leasing, a better way to lease your next car.
Back in here on Texas Money and Business, and the Ambitious Radio Network is underway with Doug Parker. And Doug, what a great guest and a great cause that is on the table today with Kelly Shackelford.
No question about it. First Liberty does such great things, and we'll jump right into a little more from Kelly here in just a moment. But we always want to thank our sponsors for making it possible. So all3reports.com, that's all the number 3reports.com. Many people only check their credit reports every 3 to 5 years when they're financing a home or maybe purchasing a vehicle. But if there's an issue, it could be too late to do anything about it then. So make sure and monitor your credit so you can be proactive and not reactive. And speaking of a new vehicle, a wise person once said, lease what depreciates, buy what appreciates. So go to AutoFlex Leasing to purchase your next vehicle, or lease your next vehicle, I should say. They offer a better way to lease your next car, America's largest independent leasing company. So today we're talking with Kelly Shackelford of First Liberty. And Kelly, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You are a very unique leader, and again, I'm always impressed with the different styles and the different things that folks do and how they're able to use their God-given skills to really make things happen. So let me ask you this. What's one of the personal habits that you would say has contributed most to your success?
Um, when I was younger, I would have said, I would have assumed that to be a good leader, you have to be a certain personality type, kind of a hard charger, a type A personality, quick decision maker. And, a number of those things aren't me. And what I really think I've learned is that what you really need is humility before the Lord to recognize that I can't do this job. I can't, there's so much I can't do without you. And so I think if you're not in prayer, and you're not really seeking the Lord for what you're doing, that's what really is going to bring you success. And I don't care what your natural talents and tendencies are. Your flesh might work a little bit, and this is even if you're in a for-profit business. I'm just not talking about people that lead nonprofits. I think there's just so much more that happens if you are dependent upon the Lord and realize that that He can do much more than you can do. I mean, His business plan is a lot better than the one you'll put in your head, and so I just say that dependence, that comes through prayer and through just all the other, you go through the spiritual maturities of that people could go through. Being in the Word, being in a fellowship group, being in a good church, and all the kinds of things that go along with that. But ultimately, it's really realizing that you're not so hot all by yourself, that you need help, and really, there's nobody that can help you better than the Lord.
No question about that. So let me ask you this. So you rewind back, 26 or 27 years. And when you first started doing this, it seems like it was a couple guys that were just trying to give back and give back to the community, but it got to be a little overwhelming. And so they brought you in to start, kind of taking some of that load off of them. And then out of that has come this giant organization, the largest in the country, as you said. But what fears did you have when first starting Liberty? Were there things that just popped up and you were like, oh my goodness, what's this? What's that? I mean, were there fears that popped up?
Well, absolutely. I'm not, I didn't go through all of my past, but I mean, I lost my father when I was 3. And so I never really had that father figure, and so I wasn't really sure of myself because I just didn't have the model. And so when I started working first, I kind of had, as I said, I had some people who were over me who were a little, more experienced and all that. But I won't go through all the iterations, but there were a number of times that the ministry changed, and I went from one to another in different position and different kinds of things. And there was a time when I would come, and what would happen at that time is I would get there and I would say, okay, now I'm in charge. And it's not like God hadn't blessed what I'd been doing, and and He had kind of shown me, hey, Kelly, I'm going to allow you to do this. I'm gonna give you favor here. But all of a sudden, when I didn't have sort of those crutches, I guess, of other people, and I was officially the head guy, I wasn't sure of myself, and God had to bring some people, to me while I was doing my job to kind of say to me, "Hey, God's really blessing you here," to remind me what I should have already known. But it was just a confidence deal. I just saw the same thing happen with. We had in our organization some other things that we were doing, and when we went national 3 years ago, because we'd always been a Texas group, part of what we did was purely Texas, and it was the legislative stuff. And so I took my legislative director and we said, you've got to start your own group. and we're going to, give you the funding that we've used here, but we're going to be religious liberty national, and that's all we do. And you're a different focus, and so you need to lead that, and I'll help you. The reason we had him do this is tremendously talented guy. We knew he would do great, but you know what? He had never been the guy, and he was really scared about that. And I had no fear at all. I knew exactly what was going to happen, And so it's interesting how, not only God, but your other people can see very clearly, how God created you, how he has gifted you, how, areas that you're going to succeed in when you can't see it yourself necessarily because you hadn't been there yet. And so I walked through the same process with this guy. And so it's an example of the same thing I went through, just needing to sort of have that confidence, pats on the back and stuff to say, this is your giftedness. You're doing well here. You can do it. Depend upon the Lord. And instead of the doubts and the nags that the enemy will bring to try to keep you down.
Sure, absolutely. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about maybe for just a minute, relationship with the media, because obviously, it's a hot topic, the things that you're going over. And I've seen you on Fox News and other stuff, but how have you been received by some of the other media outlets?
Well, I mean, look, a lot of times the media is hostile to, the Christian perspective, not because they mean to be, but they don't get it. They come from a different worldview. And what I would say about the media is, number one, if you treat people, it's the old golden rule, right? If you treat people the way you would want them to treat us, I think you typically get better relationships with people. And a lot of these media things, some of them are in and out, but a lot of them are relationships. Because if you're going to go on O'Reilly, then you might be on O'Reilly a number of times if you're doing like what we do, or you might be on, you name it, right? You name the show or the person. And so those are relationships. So treating them fairly, treating them graciously is important, but also you have to be prepared. And a lot of people, I think, they just go into media thinking, well, I'll just go in there and just say whatever comes to my mind. And there's no time of preparation. There's no time of prayer. There's no time of sitting down and thinking, okay, because let me explain something to your audience. I mean, the way things typically work in the media, absent being on a live TV show, is what shows up in the media is just a small percentage of the discussion you have. So if you're going to be on TV news, or you're going to be in a newspaper article, or you're going to probably have somebody talk to you for 30 minutes, and then they're going to put, if it's the news, for instance, they're going to put 15 seconds on the news, or they're going to put 2 or 3 sentences in the newspaper article. So you better have done your homework to figure out, how do I summarize what the main point that I want to get across here is, where even when he or she is done with his interview, they'll come back and they'll go, you know what, that nails it right there. You know what, if you do your work, you make their job easier and you get your point across. And so it takes preparation as well as relationship with people.
Doug, it was through the media that I actually met Kelly. Kelly, can you believe it's been 20 years ago that we actually met? Wow. And it's been a long time. I was producing a national program called Point of View that's still on the air today. And one of my heroes in not only the faith but in the media, Dr. Marlon Maddox, who's gone on to be with the Lord now. And this is how I met Kelly. And this is the good side of the media, by the way. And so Kelly would come on the show and became good friends and part of the family of broadcasters there on the program. And I just remember Kelly just sitting behind that booth and listening and learning about all the great things that you would do, and how Marlon and you would really have that great exchange. And I think that was such a great time, and especially for me, just learning about the things that needed to be defended. And then here you are today doing so very well, and it just blesses me to know that you're still defending issues that come up in the church, in the military, the school, the public arena. But what a blessing, Doug, to have a Kelly Shackelford and his team like this that continues to stand for the very things that we love and hold dear to our heart, but that have a place that needs to be protected through the Constitution. And Kelly is kind of like the guard standing at the door with a gun, and we appreciate that very much. So I've always appreciated
Absolutely.
Kelly for so long. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is great stuff, and kind of as we wrap up this segment, there's so many things out there that we take for granted, and I think when he was talking earlier about the young man that brought the Bible to school, and I think it was Giovanni, I couldn't fathom a situation like that where a little kid is just reading a Bible and somebody's trying to tell him he can't do that, and if it weren't for this group, the Liberty Institute, he would not have been able to have done that. So it's great work that you're doing, and I'm glad our listeners are going to be able to kind of hear about what you're doing. Maybe they may or may not have been exposed to you in the past. So if you like what you're hearing, text ambitious to 69922. Standard messaging rates apply. See the website for more details. And next we're going to be talking more to Kelly about the ambitious things that he's really doing right now, and then what's next on Ambitious Radio.
Here's another RepairMyCreditNow.com story.
Home ownership. It's the American dream. It's a goal you've always hoped to achieve. You've spent countless weekends looking for the perfect house on the ideal block. The rates are low and you've saved enough for the down payment. Unfortunately, now the mortgage company says there's a little hitch. Okay, let's be honest. It's a gigantic, gargantuan hitch. It's your credit. And it looks like your estimated house payment will be a lot more.
www.repairmycreditnow.com.
Hello, this is Doug Parker with RepairMyCreditNow.com. Do you have less than perfect credit, a repo, maybe some late payments, a collection account? Are they being reported accurately? Studies show that over 70% of Americans have inaccuracies on their credit reports. Where do you fit in? Go to RepairMyCreditNow.com for your free credit report evaluation. And remember, your credit is your future. If you want to get started now, log on now. RepairMyCreditNow.com.
RepairMyCreditNow.com. www.repairmycreditnow.com.
We're back in here on Texas Money and Business and the Ambitious Radio Network with Doug Parker here. And Doug, it's always great to have such great guests here on the program, and especially for change agents like Kelly Shackelford and the First Liberty Institute that's been around for so long and that is continuing to expand and cover the areas that are pertinent today. And I know that's what we're going to talk about in this segment.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about it. And, one of the things that, and I didn't get to it in the last time, but I do want to bring it up because we always hear about, good stuff and sometimes behind the scenes or behind, what's going on, there's underlying issues, currents underneath. And I always like to kind of talk about something like that. So Kelly, is there anything you can think of maybe over the past decade or two that's something that really maybe was a mistake that was made and kind of how it affected the nonprofit and then how you navigated through that?
Well, gosh, nothing's coming up to the top of my mind immediately. I mean, look, we're always in battles, and in every battle that we're in, it's kind of like not very many professions are like law. I mean, it's like you're a plumber, and every pipe you're screwing in, somebody else is trying to unscrew, and so it's kind of a daily thing for us. I mean, there's somebody trying to really thinking and obsessing and strategizing how they're going to make us lose on this religious freedom for this, like you say, for Giovanni Rubio, a 9-year-old, or let's say Gabriela Perez, a little 5-year-old girl who was told, quote, "It's not good to pray in school," and stop from praying over her meal. I mean, there's somebody literally on the other side trying to beat you. And then not only is that going on, but there's an attempt, certainly in a spiritual realm as well, trying to beat you, like in the media. So like in the Gabriela Perez case I just mentioned with a little 5-year-old girl, what did they do? They came out with an article in the newspaper saying that it didn't happen. And of course, the guy who wrote the article, and this is in a major newspaper, it's the Orlando newspaper, never checked to get his facts right. And so he just slandered this little girl and her family when she was already going through all kinds of stuff. Now, by the end, there was a lineup. She picked out who it was. The school ended up apologizing and everything and having to back down. But there's every one of these things, just realize every one we take, it might look like, hey, we take the case and we win. But actually, there's a ferocious battle going on to on the other side to create precedent that would be anti-religious freedom, and certainly to give a bad PR image. And then we're trying to do the opposite of that on this side, to create good precedents that protect people, our children, our grandchildren, and create good media as far as getting the word out, so people are empowered to know the freedoms that they have to share the truth and to impact people's lives.
Kelly, do you find yourself more in a more a mode of defense in terms of things that come against these the tenets and the very things that you represent, or do you find a mixture of where you're being proactive and going after certain things that are attacking the message and the thing that we're defending here?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of defense because some of the attacks are so outrageous that you can't even believe anybody's bringing these, right?
Sure.
I mean, and everybody's heard of the crazy stuff going on around the country, and like I said, the 5-year-old girl who stopped from praying over her meal. I mean, who would ever thought? So,
right.
But we have an offensive side to what we do too. We have certain areas where we know that the law has gotten off course,
mm-hmm.
and where we've decided here's what we're going to do to bring it back, and we're going to take some legal action to begin to reform that and move that back. And actually, if you were to go back 20 years ago and looked at a lot of the Supreme Court cases, or 30 years ago,
mm-hmm.
on religious freedom, you'd realize that now we've actually moved it in a really good direction. I'd say the military, for instance, in the last 5 years alone, it was just going in a horrible direction. I mean, we had really bad things happening in the military to those who are already sacrificing. And in the last, especially 2 to 3 years since we opened the military division here to provide religious freedom in the military, we've seen a significant movement. And that wouldn't have happened and again, I might want to take credit. This was the Lord's idea, because we just hired a guy on staff. We were just hiring our next attorney. Yeah, he came out of the military, and yeah, he was a litigator in the military, and he taught at the Naval Academy, but we were just hiring him as an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 months later, there's this flood of attacks on religious freedom in the military, against chaplains, against veterans memorials, against all kinds of, because they had a cross on them.
Right.
And we're going, everybody's looking for an expert on military law. And, they're like, where can we find somebody who's a military litigator? And, we have one that's actually on staff. He's right down the hall, and we didn't even hire him for that. And so before we knew it, we opened up a whole division on the military, and it's been incredible to see what's been happening now, and us changing the law back for religious freedom. And that was a specific measure pointed at the military, and it's been incredibly successful. And we've got really probably one of the biggest cases we've ever had this year.
Mm-hmm.
Is the case that we have that's going before what you would essentially say is the military Supreme Court, the Court of Military Appeals, and it's a case where a Marine was court-martialed for having a scripture verse on her computer.
Wow.
And it's going to set a precedent, because they've never had one of these religious liberty cases at the military Supreme Court. This is going to set the standard across every branch of the military. And so it's just incredible to see what's happened there. And that was definitely something we were focusing on, that the Lord knew we needed to focus on, and even brought us the right person on staff to do that.
I love that, Doug, Kelly and his staff has gone into these areas. And again, like in this case you just mentioned, this is going to set a precedent. And so now whenever they have something down the road in the future, they'll refer back to this particular one here as as a barometer. So I love the aspect of liberty from this angle, from a proactive angle that is not just defending, but is coming to the defense and standing up and saying, hey, we're pointing in this direction. We have the right to do this, and I love that about them.
No, it really is great stuff. And one thing, Kelly, I'd heard you say one time before, and you were really talking about kind of how it works. You're talking about the attorneys that you have on staff and this, that, and the other that you're hiring, but I think I remember you saying something about you've got kind of a network all across the country, and you've got these seasoned attorneys. And can you tell us in like a couple of minutes a little bit about how that part of the network works? Yeah,
that's really the secret sauce. I mean, that's the whole reason for our success, and the Lord. If the best way I can say it is, if you were to look at legal groups that are out there, they all do the same method, which is raise as much money as you can, hire as many attorneys as you can with that money, and then put them in an office in DC or New York or somewhere, fly them around the country and cover as many of your legal group's issues, whether you're left wing or right wing or whatever. You cover as many of those as you can. That's not our model. Our model is really somewhat of a body of Christ model. And I'll give God the credit for this, because I just kind of slipped into this by accident and had no idea how incredible this would be. But what we do is there's all these lawyers who are believers who went to law school because they wanted to stand for what was right. And 30 years later, these are literally the best litigators at the best law firms in the country, and in fact in the world.
Wow.
And they've done honorable work for their clients, big corporations and et cetera, but they've never gotten to do a case for their faith or for their country. And so we go to them and we say, look, if we give you everything you need, are you willing to give your time? And they're like, I've been waiting 30 years. Sign me up. Well, we know what's going to happen when we give them one of these cases. For the first time in their life, all their talent, their gifts, their training, everything is for the first time lined up with their faith. And they've never felt that before. And so it's kind of unfair, but we now know we have them for the rest of their lives as one of our volunteer attorneys. And I did it because I thought, we'll get a lot more bang for the buck this way, and it's been true. For every 10,000 we spend on a case, we get 60,000 donated. So it's like a 6-to-1 multiplication of the money. But the thing I wasn't thinking about and didn't realize is the win-loss ratio. And that is all the other groups, nonprofit, they'll win one, lose one. It's 50-50. Our win rate for over 12 years in a row has been well above 90%. Wow. I mean, it's just unheard of. And it's because we're the body of Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a case in California, we have the best attorney in that area at the best law firm. When they go into court and the ACLU guy flies in from New York City or somewhere else, I mean, our person lives there. So it's just a huge advantage to know the local practice, know the judge, know the people in the community, and also be one of the best lawyers at one of the best law firms in the world. You add all that together, and it's a recipe for something that really is hard to equal. And then add to that, in our case, that religious freedom has been here. It's the reason the country was founded. That all the history and the law and everything is on our side. We should be winning, 95, 98% of our cases.
That's right.
And that's what's happened. So it really is, Doug, the secret sauce. It's all these attorneys donating their time, and we coordinate that out of this office. And this is sort of the command center for all of that litigation and all those cases and legal matters. Over 400, for instance, last year, and growing every year.
My goodness, that is unbelievable. I just get chills hearing about it. So, well, as we kind of wrap up this segment, after we hear a brief word from our sponsors, we'll be discussing more with Kelly, what he does to recharge his ambitious mind, body, and spirit. Hey, ambitious listeners, you hear us interviewing entrepreneurs all the time, and there's a common theme. They want to be more productive and improve their communication. As an ambitious entrepreneur, you're always on the go. So turn your mobile phone into a business phone system with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. The Ambitious Radio Network recently partnered with Grasshopper to offer our listeners a special discount. Log on to ambitiousradio.com and click on the Grasshopper banner in the bottom right-hand corner. Get a new business number or keep your current one. Sound professional with a main greeting and multiple extensions that forwards callers to your mobile phone or others in your organization. Get a toll-free number or local number for your business with multiple extensions. Set up each extension with custom call forwarding to any phone in the world. Get your voicemails emailed to you as an audio attachment or transcribed and emailed. Keep business calls separate from your personal calls. Plans start at $12 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Remember to click on the Grasshopper banner at ambitiousradio.com for a special discount for our listeners. Join the over 150,000 small business owners that have stayed connected with Grasshopper. See how Grasshopper works? It's the entrepreneur's phone system. Turn the world into your office.
It is indeed Texas Money and Business right here on KEXP, Experts in Business. I'm Ron Taylor. Doug Parker with Ambitious Radio Network here, of course, and Kelly Shackelford is joining us with the First Legal Liberty Institute. And Doug, learning some great things today and getting to visit with someone whose heart is right where it needs to be, and God's got him right on the path that he wants him to be, and he's serving the body of Christ in an amazing way. So good to have him here.
Yeah, no question about it. We got Kelly Shackelford from First Liberty Institute, as they've just kind of updated the name, as he mentioned. It's where they defend Christian liberties and Christian rights. So let's talk just a little bit about you. We've talked a lot about what you guys do as an organization, but we always like to talk to the ambitious leader and entrepreneur and just talk to them a little bit about the things that you kind of like to do, things that drain you, things that fill you, how you pass your time, stuff like that. So what do you do whenever you need to kind of go recharge? How do you go about doing that?
I mean, I'd say there's a number of things I do. I try to do some sort of exercise every day, or at least 5 or 6 days a week. I think that's important. But I also the things I do to really kind of unwind, or I guess a typical thing maybe a guy would do, which is I might watch a sports event or play golf. And I think the reason for that is especially if you're in my world and with the stuff, there's a lot of jobs where you can't really take it home with you. But in this world, it's like there's a lot of thinking and a lot of coming up with creative ideas on how to win this case and sort of the new angle, the new idea that you hadn't thought of. And so you can literally marinate, 24/7 in your work if you're not careful. And it's especially easy to do because you're in the ministry. So you're doing a good thing. And so we can easily justify totally getting out of balance. And so the thing I like about golf, for instance, is not that I'm that good, but it requires a lot of concentration. So you kind of got to focus on what you're doing, or you'll just be horrific. And still might be really bad even if you focus. But I find myself focused and forgetting the other stuff, which is what I need to do. And the same thing watching, sports, or whether I'm watching my Baylor Bears or another sports event, or the Cowboys, or you name it. It's easier to kind of put that stuff aside for a while and recharge and rest, as the Lord really does want us to do.
Sure, absolutely. So speaking of rest, do you have from a vacation standpoint, do you take a couple vacations a year? What does a annual vacations look like for you?
Well, they change, but I mean, typically vacation in my family has meant family. So it means our family is going to do something together, and we're getting to that stage in life now where I've got my oldest who's about to get married, and so I know some of the people listening have already been through these stages, but
Yep.
where it's going to be a little harder to keep everybody together, and so we've kind of realized that, and so we try to get our family together, if not every year, at least every other year, and go do something special, like maybe get on a cruise where we're all kind of combined. We're kind of together, and there's nowhere to go. We're gonna go and see something together that's really new, history on a cruise, or just something like that, or go to a resort somewhere. But just so that we as family are together and we're learning something, we're doing something, we're active, and that's typically what we like to do.
Gotcha. And when it comes to kind of that work-life balance, you spoke about it a little bit because it's kind of hard to unplug because it's your mind thinking of the kind of the next step, kind of playing chess, advanced chess or something. But do you have that work-life balance? Are you really, at the end of the day, are you able to check out and unplug and go get 8 hours of sleep, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think everybody probably has a time when they sort of lose perspective and they get out of balance. And for me, the biggest temptation, and when that really occurred was, again, I've been doing this for almost 27 years. And but the last about 3.5 years ago, we went from a state group, which I'd always meant to just, hey, we'll do our work in Texas. It's a big state. There's plenty of work to be done. But when you have a win rate that's just through the roof and everybody's begging you to come do their cases around the country, and you see the trouble around the country and the need, we really felt it was clear God was calling us to go national. Well, we started going national after a lot of prayer, and God was just blessing everything we were doing. And you can get really heady when you're a part of a movement of God. When you're seeing incredible things happen, you can want to go everywhere and do everything. And my wife even was, she was supportive of it because she saw these incredible things that were happening, until she realized, okay, he's out of balance now. There's lots of people that can go do what you're doing, but there's nobody else who can be dad to our son who's still in high school. And so we sat down and had a discussion, took out my schedule, and we did some things like, if you're out this week, you're in next week. And we just went through and we locked down weeks where you're not going anywhere. Even though my job was to expand us nationally, that was going to have to happen every other week at the most. And so we kind of got things back in balance. God got my attention and used my wife to help me with that.
I'm glad you brought that up because my wife did a similar deal about maybe 4 years ago, something like that. I had 2 kids that were in high school, and she said, I was rolling off of one board, and she said, "Hey, please don't take anything else on as soon as this thing expires." And for a minute, I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she just was basically saying, "Hey, look, this window for influence is closing on our kids, and we've got a very limited window to impact them, and until they go off to college and come back and what have you." And it really sank in. So for all the folks that are out there, you mentioned like the hard charging A-type personalities, and some leaders are that way, some aren't, but they tend to, and I'm pointing the finger at me, be a little hard headed. But when your wife says something like that to you, listen, because it really makes a huge difference. And I very seldom have anybody that I interview or just talk to in passing that they say, "Yeah, I spent way too much time with my kids. That's one of my regrets. I spent too much time with them." It's always the other way around. They've accomplished whatever they've accomplished, but it's always at the detriment, and not always, sometimes it's at the detriment of either a relationship, a marriage or relationships with kids or whatever. And that's a regret that if you've got a good one beside you, giving you good counsel, just slow down and listen to them, because it definitely makes a huge difference there. So, Kelly, we are just about to wrap up the show, and I had a laundry list of questions. You just have so much good stuff. 2 things I want to go real quick. What's your favorite book?
Well, that's hard, but I'd say for a long time my favorite book has been A Severe Mercy it's by a friend of C.S. Lewis's, a guy by the name of Sheldon Van Auken, and it's a true story, and it's kind of like my favorite verse. It just challenges me so much because there's a level of maturity, of Christian maturity, in one of the people in the books that I almost can't even. I just feel like it's so beyond my reach of how they handle certain situations. My verse is Acts 5:40-42, which is when they say they called the apostles in and they had them flogged, and then they ordered them not to speak in the name of Jesus. And then it says the apostles left the Sanhedrin rejoicing because they had been counted worthy of suffering disgrace for his name. And they continued to preach in the temple courts and throughout. And just that's the book and the verse both challenge me because I'm not there yet, and I'd like to be. And I know that this Christian walk is it's a life, it's a progress. We're not going to get all the way there, but those are things that really challenge me and inspire me and make me want to be more of who God wants me to be, and realize I'm not there yet.
Well, that is fantastic information. And let me ask you this: if someone wants to take action, get involved with First Liberty, how would they go about doing that?
Well, the easiest thing is just to go to the website. Again, libertyinstitute.org has been our website for a while now, libertyinstitute.org. And it'll change in, I think, mid-February to firstliberty.org. But libertyinstitute.org will send them there either way. And I would encourage people, sign up to get the emails and to be on the list. Number one, you can see what's happening because you probably have no concept of the battles that are going on around you and that will affect you, your children, your grandchildren. And number one, you need to be in prayer. These people need prayer support in these cases. Like Coach Joe Kennedy, his whole career's maybe over because he went to a knee to thank God after the football game. He needs prayer. And number two, I would love for people to get these emails and information so they could share it with other people in the body, because I think the more and more people that know what's going on and they know the rights they have, the empowerment that would occur in the body of Christ, I think, could change our country. And so I just really encourage people to get involved by at least first, getting on the list and just seeing what's happening and praying. And then obviously, I mean, I've had people that got, involved, looked at some of the stuff, and the next thing they knew, they were running for State Board of Education or, whatever else. Moms who became, State Board of Education chairs. So beware, once you get involved, God might call you to actually do something.
That's
but
right.
The first step is to actually see what's happening, pray about it, and inform others so that the body of Christ can really be unified.
And folks, while you're on the website, pray about a way to make a great donation to Liberty Institute, because this is one of the best grounds you can sow into that will bless this organization and this much needed group of attorneys, Kelly Shackelford and his team there. So as you're on the website, libertyinstitute.org, click on the Ways to Give tab and give what's on your heart. We encourage that very much.
Absolutely, Ron. Thanks for throwing that in there. And Kelly, thank you so much for coming on and exposing our listeners to what you guys are doing. It's really powerful, and we hope that everyone will tune in and be people of action. LibertyInstitute.org is how they get there for right now. Again, we want to thank our sponsors as we close out. Ambitious Radio could not do it without you. RepairMyCreditNow.com, and entrepreneurs and small business owners are always looking for great resources. So if you need a logo or a website, 99 Designs connects the world with great graphic artists, dozens of designs instead of just one at 99 Designs. Spend less and get more. Start your design contest today. Tune in Wednesdays to Ambitious Radio, where we interview thought leaders and exciting entrepreneurs that are changing the faces of their organizations. Remember, you can make money or you can make excuses, but you can't make both, so go out there and be ambitious.
Thank you for listening to the Ambitious Radio Network, hosted by serial entrepreneur Doug Parker. Join us weekly as we have engaging conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders on topics that can be applied immediately after listening. Like what you've heard? Listen to other interviews at ambitiousradio.com or subscribe on iTunes.